Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Isaac Heschler. Today we're going to discuss sample rate and bit depth, some basic fundamentals. What is a sampling rate? The sampling frequency or sampling rate of samples recorded in 1 second. Now, what does that mean? A lot of snapshots taken every second. For example, CD quality 44.1 kilohertz or 44,100 samples taken per second. A lot of samples. High quality music production and Blu-ray, 44.8 kilohertz or 48,000 samples per second, which is taken in hertz. HD quality 92 kilohertz, 92,000 samples taken per second. And in some systems, there is even 192K, 192,000 samples taken per second. A lot of samples. Now here's an example of a digital audio workstation, a DAW, Pro Tools, a sample rate. Now here you can see we have 44.1 kilohertz, 48 kilohertz, 88.2 kilohertz, and 96 kilohertz. This was a screenshot taken from a Pro Tools session on my computer. Now, let's go into bit depth because there is a relationship between sample rate and bit depth. A bit depth is the number of bits the computer uses to record the audio in every single sample. The bit depth relates to the dynamic range in audio. The more bits, the more dynamic range. Well, dynamic range is the ratio of the loudest sound to the quietest sound. You can think of it like a room. You have a ceiling and you have a floor. That's basically the fundamentals of a dynamic range. The most three common bit depths used in dynamic range here in bit depth is 16-bit, 24-bit, and 32 bits. For bit depth dynamic range, as we talked about, 16 bits is 96 decibels, 24 bits is 144 decibels, and 32 bits is 192 decibels. As you see here in this slide, the bit depth dynamic comparison, we have 96, 144, and 192 decibels. I should also add that decibels is a unit measured in audio sound levels that people use to measure the sound level. I mean, quiet and loud. We have 96 decibels. Here's 16-bit. As you can see, as the decibels go up, so does the dynamic range. A lot more information is being recorded, which means higher quality audio and more dynamic range, as you'll see later. Now here's a session here for a Pro Tools session that I recorded for a digital audio workstation. Here's a bit depth example. We have 16-bit, we have 24-bit, and we have 32-bit. Now what is 32-bit float? 32-bit float is basically a 24-bit with 32 bits floating in the background. So you are still going to get that 32-bit sample of bit depth here. As we talked about earlier, 16-bit was 96 decibels, 24-bit was 144 decibels, and 32-bit was 192 decibels of dynamic range. Now, some people ask about upsampling. What is upsampling? Well, say you have a already previously recorded audio that's 44.1, let's say, for instance. And they said that I have a session here that's 88.2 or even 96 kilohertz. Will that actually add quality to my audio? Well, basically, no. It's already a previously recorded piece of audio, so the computer is already recorded something, so it's not going to be able to add extra those snapshots that we talked about earlier, the 16-bit for 44,100. Remember all that? Well, it's not going to be able to add all those snapshots again because it's already there. So when you upsample, you don't add back all the frequency content. So if you start off a session or a recording session or song, it's best just to stay stay in that sampling rate and even in that bit depth, if you can. Now, some people talk about, what about downsampling? Well, there's something called the Nyquist Theorem. The Nyquist Theorem states the highest frequency that can be reproduced when sampling is 1/2 of the sampling rate. What's that mean? Well, when you have to convert, it's best to go down by half. Well, for example, 88.2, half of 88.2 is 44.1. We have 96 kilohertz, which you go about down by half is 48K. So if you're going to have to go down, it's best to go down by 1. The conversion is going to happen a lot easier that way in the digital realm. Overview, lower bit depth. Remember the dynamic range of bit depth, 16-bit, 24-bit, 32-bit, means more noise. So using bit depths allows you to record at lower levels and not have to worry about noise when boosting. When you start off with, let's say, 16-bit, 96 decibels, it can pick up and be more noticeable if you have room noise like fans going on, computer noises, scuffling depending on how the microphone's going, as opposed to having a higher bit depth session, because you're going to have more dynamic range, so it's not going to be as noticeable. So it's best. So lower bit depth rates means more noise. So it's best to start off with higher bit depths. Higher sample rates work much better for time stretching audio. So say you have something you need to stretch out a little bit, the timing's just not right. And it's best to have a higher sample rate. So if you have, say, 96 kilohertz and a session, or even 48 or whatever, it's best to have a higher sample rate, because you think about it, it's going to end up stretching it out, and it's going to take them bits of information and stretch them out, and it can sound very unnatural if you have a lower sample rate. So if you're going to have to, if you know you're going to have to be doing any time stretching for performances or audio, it's best to start off with a higher sampling rate, because it's going to be able to sound, like I said, more natural. As bit depth and sample rate increases, more information is captured and resulting in higher quality audio, like we said earlier. But if you look at the sample, these examples here, as you can see, say for instance, the first one is 16-bit, let's say 44.1K, and the quality keeps getting better and better. As you can see, there's more information being recorded and stored here, and results in higher quality audio. And that's exactly what you want. You want higher quality audio. Now here's a quick side note here that I thought I would add. Don't confuse bit depth with dynamic range. There is a relationship between them two, but bit rate is a term used to describe amount of data being transferred into audio. For instance, CD quality, remember, was 44.1, 16-bit. Also has a bit rate of 1,411 kilobytes per second, kbps, which is a unit of what bit rate uses. And some people might be familiar with MP3s. MP3s, actually a high quality MP3, has 320 kilobytes per second. As you can see, it's almost like a quarter of your typical CD quality, which is smaller in size, and which would be great for emailing and sending people those lower quality files, so it's not going to take forever to upload. Here's a little bit rate math. Say we're talking about CD quality, because I talked about there is a relationship there. So CD quality, 44.1K, a 16-bit is 1,411 kilobytes per second. If you take 44.1K times 16 bits, which is 705.6 mono, which is just one channel. Now, if you have times 2 stereo, left and right, equals 1,411.2. So that's how you get have the bit rate of CD quality. So there is a relationship there. Kind of getting a little scientific, but I thought that would kind of add that in there. I hope I was able to explain sampling rate and bit depth a little further for you. Again, this was the basic fundamentals. You can get even deeper than this. I did a little bit, but I hope you enjoyed the session. the workshop here. Again, my name is Isaac Heschler, and thank you, and have a good day.